Okay. Says we're live.
Apparently, yes.
Yep. Yeah, we're live. Hello, folks. Welcome to Podcast One Shot, where we couldn't fit the things we wanted in for the regular podcast, The Storm. So we are doing this. With me is the petty dabbler of the dark arts, Dalton L. Mortmeyer, aka the Authenticator.
Yes, hello.
And I am the madman with a computer, the brainstormer of pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
Hmm.
I might have to rework that one.
Well, I mean, it suits you either way, so just leave it alone, I think.
Well, I think it kind of coincides with the one I have already for the main
Yeah.
podcast. So before we get, I forgot to tweet out that we're live. But yeah, so we are covering some articles we couldn't get to last week because I didn't think that article was going to be that long, which was
No, me either.
the 5 signs your story is sexist, which
It
was
it
a
was
really
it was one of those where there were multiple pages of article, and then instead of each entry in the list being like one or two paragraphs, it was like a full page for each one. And the stupid was very densely packed therein.
dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's just you stopped like mid sentence. So
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. I had finished my thought. I said it was longer than we thought it was going to be, and stupid was densely packed therein, which led to a lot of sidebars.
yeah, but it did give us a lot of good content. It's always a plus for us.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. So
Unfortunately, it means we didn't get to some of the other various and sundry stupid things that happened. But
yeah,
here we are.
so this is gonna be the first. So this first, let me share it. This first one is one I think Dolan sent to me like the was like one of the first ones he sent to me besides the 5 signs your story is sexist. Is The Lion King is a fascistic story. No remake can change that. For the record, okay, a little funny story before we go on with this. I legitimately thought like I didn't really read it like the title. I thought it was fantastic story. And I was thinking, why would Dalton send me this? What would be the point? I don't really think there'd be much of us to like cover. But he pointed
And
out to me like right before we started the 21st podcast.
yeah, it's fascistic, not fantastic. As much as fantastic would make infinitely more sense, somebody somewhere can apparently tell the difference between monarchies and fascism. But we'll come back to that a lot throughout this article, I have a feeling. Because that's, oh boy.
Okay, so no matter how you look at it, this is a film that introduces us to a society where the weak have learned to worship at the feet of the strong. For the record, they're animals. It is it's the what's the term?
The circle of life.
Not that the food chain. It's the food chain thing.
Yeah, evolution, motherfucker. Do you speak it? Basically.
I think you mixed up. I think that reference is a little muddled there.
What?
I think you're the line you just said, the reference is muddled.
Not quite. As we will see, he apparently does not speak it, which will lead me back to that reference a lot.
well, never mind. But Dan Hassler Forrest is the writer of this article.
All right, Danny boy, hit me with your best shot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do want to read this quick little bio. Dan Hassler Forrest is an author and public speaker on media franchises, cultural theory, and political economy. He lives in the Netherlands and works as an assistant professor in the media studies department of Utrecht University.
Okay, this is a professor. So I have absolutely no reason, Dan, to go easy on you whatsoever. How about you then?
Oh, hey, Chrono's here. What's up, Chrono? Watching Constantine on cable right now.
The show or the movie?
I don't think they do reruns anymore of the show Constantine on TV anymore. So it's probably the movie.
Somebody should somewhere because that show is too good to not rerun somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I gotta get a drink for this. I will after I read the first paragraph.
Oh, okay.
Last November, Disney set the internet aflame with its teaser trailer for The Lion King. The 93-second video gave millions of people chills by faithfully recreating key moments from the original film's beloved opening number. But as
Without color or contrast or any of the things that actually made those original shots worth looking at. But sure.
Yep. But as nostalgic as Circle of Life makes us feel, this bombastic scene is also a painful reminder of the film's ideological agenda. I think Don just facepalmed himself twice.
Yes, I did. Because, Dan, the movie had no ideological agenda and still does not have an ideological agenda. What it is, Dan, is a story for a story's sake. You have entirely projected there being an ideological agenda onto this because you cannot conceive of a scenario in which you value art for its own sake rather than its ideological means to an endness. Dan.
So, Chrono shot back. Movie. Gabriel is stuck as a human female. Lol.
But then again, at least that human female is Tilda Swinton, and we should all be so lucky.
Yes, I liked her in that movie.
Yes. She was the one bright spot of that movie.
It introduces us to a society where the weak have learned to worship at the feet of the strong. Again, it's one thing, circle of life. 2, food chain, and 3, it's a fucking movie.
And 4, evolution. Whether you like it or not, evolution applies in this scenario because we're talking about a setting or a movie that's set in the African savannas. And what's more, actually, you know what? I'm going to save that rant for later because I'm sure it will come back up. If it doesn't, I will rant further. But yeah, evolution, motherfucker. Do you speak it? Is my question.
Okay, now I think I'm starting to get what you mean.
Yeah.
So I retract my previous statements on I don't get the reference. Well, no, I don't think the reference works, but now I start to get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's being deliberately pig ignorant of basic evolutionary like facts, and it's
He does what a lot of writers of the articles we have covered since the very beginning of our podcast is like they project their politics onto things.
Because that's the only value they can project onto art, because they can't even remotely allow themselves to consider that art has value for its own sake, whether you want it to or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As a fable, The Lion King isn't really about lions or any other animal species. Instead, a variety of cute and cuddly creatures stand in for a deeply human way of organizing society. But mapping, wow, that sounded like it hurt.
Not as much as the stupid did. So continue.
Just for the record, folks, if you couldn't catch what he like the sound, Dalton face palmed kind of hard.
Yes.
Kind of sounded more like a slap than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on.
But mapping our own social hierarchies onto the pristine and neutral animal kingdom makes their power dynamics seem natural, common sense, and even desirable.
Dan, you've already broken your rules twice in that single sentence alone. Number one, it is simply a story about lions and other cute and cuddly creatures. It's essentially a fable using like nature as a setting. So nature is going to impact how that story plays out because that's the point of setting it in the Lion Kingdom there. Secondly, if you're going to willingly or rather willfully project your own bullshit onto the movie and admit that you're doing that, you don't then get to waffle on incessantly about whatever socio-political woo you want and act as though you're not doing that. Act as though you're being neutral. Because yes, Dan, nature is neutral. It kind of needs to be in order for the world to make sense. Because if you didn't catch it, one of the lines of the movie, Dan, was when we try against all odds to fuck up the natural order responds in kind and fucks with us. That's the whole point of why Scar is a terrible king. Because he tries to do things that aren't beneficial to the natural order, and the natural order is thereby fucked. Continue.
Okay. Um, and by using predator-prey relationships to allergi, as
Allegorize.
allegorize human power structures, the film almost inevitably incorporates a worldview in which the ruler's power derives from their biological superiority. Oh, so he's kind of like Movie Bob in that sense, right?
Okay. Dan, you've got this completely flipped back and forth. It's not using animals to allegorize human standards. It's examining human standards through the lens of the natural order. You've completely flipped the allegorical burden of proof. Dan, this is your problem. You start from a premise that is utterly backwards and do not consider any other premises valid because of your bullshit ideological framework. And then when people who don't share your ideological framework come at you with that makes no sense because of this objective reason, this objective reason, and this objective reason, you act as though they're invalid human beings and therefore can contribute nothing to the conversation. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
Right. Isn't the Lion King based like so kind of loosely based on Hamlet?
Well, actually, if we want to actually look for like a Shakespearean counterpart, I saw a video once that made a really compelling argument that it's closer to not Richard III, but Henry III, than it is to Hamlet.
No, wait, I'm thinking of Macbeth. No, no.
No, you were Hamlet is the one that everyone compares Lion King to. It's just not quite right.
Okay. Funny enough, I have not actually read Hamlet.
I've read it a long time ago. I didn't reread it because it wasn't as interesting as some of Shakespeare's other works.
But well, my main thing is that I learned a lot of Shakespeare in high school, and they didn't really cover a lot. It's mostly Romeo and Juliet, Caesar, Julius, Julius
Yep.
Caesar, Macbeth, and that's pretty much all I remember. So yeah. Okay. Obviously, fables can serve politically diverse ends.
Or, and this is the important one that you seem to have skipped entirely over here, Dan, they don't have to serve any secondary ends whatsoever. The value, such as it is, can be contained entirely within the parameters of the story and the value therein contained, and doesn't have to be a political allegory for any goddamn thing. But
George Orwell. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
But lest I forget that possibility is utterly haram because that's stupid and silly in your personal framework, Dan. Well, allow me to speak for every other motherfucker on the planet, Dan. Nobody gives a shit about your personal framework unless you actually substantiate it. And you have failed at a return to substantiate any of the bullshit you are saying. Okay, now you may go. Sorry.
George Orwell's Animal Farm employed a similar allegory to make class distinctions more visible and criticize authoritarian systems of power. I've not read Animal Farm.
Here's where I'm really going to headfuck this guy. Dan, it wasn't just generic authoritarianism he was allegorizing, and he said this, and he said as much. He was specifically mocking the shit out of not fascism, but communism, Dan. But I really, really find it hard to imagine that you are on the non-communist side of the argument with this, given how much you hate fascism and want to see everything that's not communist-leaning as a tool to the end of fascism. I'm gonna go ahead and venture to believe that you probably would find yourself on the side of communism, which, going back to your own standard there of Animal Farm, really does not bode well for you, because to paraphrase something from Animal Farm, I am not going to let you sit here and say pigs are more equal but lions are not. Because pigs, Dan, are not more equal. More equal can be quite a contradiction if you don't apply it correctly. And you have not thus far applied anything correctly. Moving on.
Well, actually, like I said, I haven't read Animal Farm. I mean, is it good?
It's great. Most books by George Orwell are pretty great, to be honest with you. And it's actually a fairly short book, so it's not even that difficult. But you could actually get audiobooks of it on YouTube. I might have to find you one when we're done with it.
I would prefer to read the actual thing. I'm not really big on audiobooks.
Okay. Noted.
All right. Disney's own anthropomorphic Robin Hood adaptation similarly associated power systems with animal food chains, using its allegory to poke fun at the obvious greed and corruption that define the predatory ruling class. I want to, Don, before because I feel like this right there is going to get you a little heated.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
The thing is, though, is that in a way, the main villain, not the sheriff of Nottingham, but the
Prince John.
Prince John. He's a lion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Weak, pathetic lion. I think in a way that's kind of to be the parody of like the standard symbol for kings.
Yeah.
Which was a mighty lion. He was kind of to be the inverse of that. He was supposed to be a weak and frail and cowardly lion.
Mm.
As opposed to, I believe, his brother, King King
Richard.
King Richard, who when we see him in the movie, he is big, strong, and I would say noble. So
Mhm.
that obviously that doesn't really associate with this. I'm just saying like it is a story of Robin Hood. You could change it into being people, and it would be the same story.
Mhm.
Uh, Fuck off, Dan.
Yeah. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. You can go.
Okay. So then, here is the thing. The only reason why the Disney version of Robin Hood is anthropomorphic animals is because Disney thought that that would be more compelling for children than live or human characters in this instance. And the reason why Prince John is a lion and King Richard is a lion is because the historical King Richard, on whom Robin Hood is based, was referred to as King Richard the Lionheart. And given that they need to cater to children, and given that that pun is too irresistible to pass up, they made the kings of the Robin Hood universe into lions. As to your assertion that this has anything at all whatsoever to do with animalistic food chains, I call bullshit.
Yep.
Because Friar Tuck in this adaptation is a bear. Robin Hood himself is a fox. So aside from animalistic archetypal behaviors, i.e., Friar Tuck acts very much like a stereotypical teddy bear, foxes are crafty, and so is Robin Hood, so on and so forth. This has absolutely fuck all to do with anything. It was made that way so it would be more like a stereotypical storybook or fairy tale, and therefore appeal closer to children's sensibilities. Because Robin Hood is a very complex medieval story with a lot of adult themes they had to edit out, because if they didn't, then Disney would be sued by angry parents, basically. And also, it would have soared right the fuck over the heads of most children.
Yeah. I can't believe I missed that. As soon as you said it, I knew I forgot something to mention, like about how like they were just done that so kids would be more interested in watching the film.
Yep.
I can't believe I forgot that. But okay. Were you going to say something, Tom, or
No, go ahead.
okay? Uh, it's like a little thing here. I think for another article he might have written. The droids in Star Wars are basically slaves. No, not exactly. I mean, there are actually a lot of droids that are freelance bounty hunters. So
Yep.
most of them just do what they're programmed to do, which is like what most equipment does. I wouldn't consider that they have a soul. See, now we're getting into kind of like um, the metaphysical discussion of how do
Yeah, this is gonna be one of those long sidebars, so I think it might be better to just skip and come back to it if it comes up.
yeah. I'm gonna make that next week's maybe. The sympathies of the Lion King, though, lie elsewhere, at least in the original film, which is a far better than the movie, the one we're getting now.
Yeah.
Doubling down on Disney's historical obsession with patriarchal monarchies. Oh, hey, look, patriarchy. I didn't think we were going to see that.
Ah, okay, okay. Time for this rant again. In the time period when most countries had kings, then there was this concept which you as a professor should know about, so I'm not holding back on any of this, called noblesse oblige, the obligations of the nobility. There were entire books written for the consumption of kings to basically teach them how to appeal to their subjects. One of the most famous, of course, is Machiavelli's The Prince, and another one of the most famous is the book that Machiavelli was replying to, whose name I have completely forgotten. But regardless, here is the funny thing about monarchies and noblesse oblige, Dan. In a monarchical system, I can't speak today, with the king wielding most of the overt political power, that does not stop queens from holding influence over their husbands. I don't know if you've ever, been in a relationship, Dan, but I'm fairly certain from every conversation with women that I have ever had and every conversation with women that anyone who I know has ever had, that women are not these frail little things that have no power over the people that they are romantically involved with. But here is where this comes up in terms of power structures and why I laugh hysterically at your whole patriarchy thing. When the peasants are dissatisfied, they revolt. We know this. When the peasants revolt, the king's head typically winds up in a basket separated from his body. But in most of these cases, the queen can and often does survive and simply marries whoever his successor turns out to be, or is simply sold off to another king, or well, not sold off, but propositioned off to another king and gets to continue ruling another country of some kind. Why I bring this up is because, again, the king had noblesse oblige. Unless the queen was ruling solo, i.e., she was ruling as the primary monarch herself, she did not have these kind of obligations. But what she did have was everything the king had. So in other words, when men ruled, men had overt power and therefore had an obligation to use that overt power to benefit his subjects. When women ruled, all she really needed to do was find herself a husband that she could puppet around and manipulate into doing what she wanted, and she would not have to do dick for the noblesse oblige, but she would still get all of the benefits of being royalty. And this, Dan, you choose to call a patriarchy. I significantly question your language use, my dear brother, if that is where you're going with this.
It places the audience's point of view squarely on the autocratic lions whose pride rock literally looks down upon all of society's weaker groups, a kind of Trump Tower of the African savannah.
Oh, okay. Firstly, the Pride Rock is like that, and it is used like this in the movie, so I don't want to hear it's not actually for that bullshit. It's used like that so that the ruling class of the animalistic society, if that's what we're calling it, can watch over their subjects. You will notice that one of the main differences between Mufasa's regime and Scar's regime is Mufasa attempts to be fair with his subjects by only eating what the lions required to survive and letting the prey animals that he doesn't need to eat to survive continue to live and thrive, because he understands this notion of nature requiring a balance, i.e., if there are too many predators and not enough prey animals, both end up dying. But if there are too many prey animals and not enough predators, those prey animals tend to explode in population and destroy shit.
Do you still want society
Balance. It is a fragile thing.
Huh?
Balance is a fragile thing. Uh,
Yes. Sorry, my family keeps coming in and asking me random shit. Um,
oh, I do
but
this all the time. It's the thing people do.
yeah.
Okay.
But what was I? Oh, I was talking about this in relation to actual like animalistic behavior. Yeah. If there aren't enough predator animals to keep the prey population down to a reasonable degree, they will eat all of the they will eat all of the plant life, which will then cause them to starve, and then they themselves will die. So this balance needs to be maintained if there's going to be a continuing circle of life. That's why it's a circle, because circles don't have a beginning or an ending.
They just are.
Yeah.
Okay. When Grand Patriarch Mufasa explains patiently to his son how this division of power works, he emphasizes that the king must maintain balance in their kingdom. This seems acceptable when we think about the environment, where we associate balance with stability.
Yes, Dan, that is the entire point of the goddamn movie. That's why when Scar takes over, he abuses his power horribly, failing to live up to his noblesse oblige, to call it back to something I said earlier,
Right.
and then everything goes to shit.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if I can find some pictures as like a reference, like when Mufasa was leading the Pride Lands and when Scar was.
Yeah, and before you pull the it's an allegory for power dominance and so on and so forth, do I need to remind you, Dan, that the person who Mufasa trusted above all others was a little hornbill bird named Zazu. And one of the things that Zazu was required to do was essentially go around and take take censuses of the kingdom and basically be the means by which Mufasa could hear people's complaints if they had any. A fascist would not do that. He would silence all the people who would complain. But this is where you're fundamentally going wrong, Dan. You see every hierarchy as potentially fascist. You refuse to register the difference between a monarchy and fascism because you see all power systems as absolute and with no deference to the people who are below them. But in actuality, if you talk to anyone who's ever held any kind of power or influence whatsoever, you would know that one of the fundamental things about human nature is when we feel tyrannized, we tend to become extremely unsatisfied and we revolt. But when we feel those who are ruling over us are just rulers, that is when we tend to cooperate. Therefore, it is in the interest of everyone with modicums of power to maintain a positive relationship with the people they are ruling over. Not to mention that pesky thing that you all seem to forget that humans have by their very nature, which is empathy. People don't like to see people suffering. The only time people do like to see people suffering is when they convince themselves that to some extent or other, those people or beings deserve it. And one of the things that Mufasa very much was very clear on to Simba is that the people who the animals that he ruled over don't necessarily deserve to die, but that needs to be maintained on both sides of the aisle for it to be an equally balanced system. It's not a It's not a line with a group of people above and a group of people below. It's a circle, and that circle needs to be cooperative or death for everyone, basically.
Right. Okay, so I found a couple pictures. Give me a second when I pull those up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think you can see it now.
Yeah.
On the left is when Mufasa was in charge, and on the right is when Scar was in charge of the Pride Lands. You can honestly
Mm.
see the very difference here, like all the plant life and foliage, like is dead here while it's thriving here and stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, just because Scar does not understand that balance has to be maintained is only. Well, I gotta be honest. He is pretty much a uh, generic Disney villain in a way.
Yeah.
He only craves power.
Basically, he wants all the things without ever having to pay deference to anyone else's things. That's his shtick.
Yeah. So, Dan, you are wrong.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the article, so we can further catalog all the various and sundry ways he is wrong.
Right. Give me one moment. I have to. Okay. But when we consider that he's really explaining to his heir why the natural order makes it normal for kings to devour the peasants, the lion's perspective feels a lot more. And some, again, they're animals. That's what they are.
Would you rather a scenario in which everyone suddenly became a vegan? Because I think you'd have a lot of dead animals there.
Mhm.
This is one of the reasons why projecting human attributes onto animals does not work, because there's only so many ways that you can allegorize economics and evolution, stroke the food chain, stroke the natural order, stroke
I got.
circle of life.
Do you know that comic animosity or something like that?
Heard of it, never read it.
Well, if I remember correctly, the story is essentially what if all the animals in the world suddenly became self-aware and developed developed consciousness essentially.
Suddenly became sapient, basically, is what you're getting at.
Yeah, an interesting concept to be sure, but it's just
And incidentally, incidentally, Dan, you already answered yourself here, so I don't really even need to. But since you apparently can't put two and two of your own arguments together, let me do it for you. In Animal Farm, the main plot of the story is this one pig gets very, very drunk. I believe his name is Leopold? No, I'm misthinking. But anyway, this one pig gets very, very drunk, and he realizes, why do we put up with the farmer? He's just going to kill us and eat us eventually, and take our milk and take our eggs and various other things. And there's a subplot where the horse is like, he's just going to sell you to a glue factory when you're no longer useful to him, and so on and so forth. Do you know what happens? They veg out horribly, a lot of them die, and eventually one of the animals, specifically the pigs, hence the lion pigs are more equal, decide that because it was them that caused the revolution, deserve more authority over other people because they're the people who know best. And then they start acting pretty much identical to the humans, and then the other animals realize they've been had. You've already answered your question why the food chain needs to exist the way it does, because if it didn't exist that way,
Anarchy.
yeah. And nature is already anarchistic enough, what with the survival of the fittest thing, so I don't think we should poke that particular bear literally or metaphorically. But do go on with yours.
To be honest, I don't think this. Because while you were talking, I did a little skimming further down, and it's really. It goes into something. He might have a few cents to say, but we're not there yet. Bad as it is that the powerful are presented as inherently better than all other species, things get substantially worse once the hyenas are introduced. With the lions standing in for the ruling class and the good herbivores embodying society's decent, law-abiding citizen, the hyenas transparently represent the black, brown, and disabled bodies that are forcibly excluded from this hierarchical society. I probably said that wrong.
Okay. You included disabled there. That means you were attempting to speak for me.
And
when you said,
also, he also said brown, and I am brown, so.
yes, you were attempting to speak for us in this cockamamie knees up bullshit you're doing. Do not do that.
Yeah, it's fucking.
We, rights are not separate from the hierarchy. We are perfectly capable of eking out our own niches within the hierarchy. Granted, would it be better if we were, rich a la George Soros or somebody like that? Sure, but some of us don't need everything in the world just to feel satisfied with ourselves, Dan. And I think that might be saying more about you and your ilk than it really needs to be saying. But regardless, Dan, A, do not speak for us. B, they're not separate from the hierarchy. You recall the hyenas thrive off of the things that die by natural causes and or other means that other predators don't want. Yes, it's a hard knock life for the hyenas, but it's also in their nature as hyenas. Hyenas are scavengers. Scavenger entities do scavenging. If there wasn't anything around to scavenge, they would go kind of nuts. And if there was too much around to scavenge, they would become fat and there would be a bunch of dead things lying all over the place. Because they wouldn't need to scavenge anymore. It's essentially, to use another natural metaphor, the hyenas are like mushrooms. They essentially help nature clean up all the dead shit so that it's not piling up everywhere. Can you imagine what life would be like if no dead animals decomposed or were eaten by anything else? Dan.
It's nice, good compost. At least a nice, good compost is what I said.
Can you imagine what life would be like if no dead things ever decayed? Everything just sat around being dead all the time?
Okay, so then no, not compost. My bad.
Yeah, no compost. And
Well,
even if there was compost, imagine the mountains of literal shit that you'd have if nothing ever permanently decomposed.
ugh. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Noticeably marked by their ethnically coded street accents, the hyenas blatantly symbolize racism and anti-Semitic stereotypes of verminous groups that form a threat to society. For one thing, those were just the everyone has certain accents in the movies.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just and animals themselves. I'm pretty sure if they actually talked, would have accents depending on where they were.
And more importantly, the hyenas once again are not threats to the society. What is threatening to the society is very ironically indeed the hyenas feeling oppressed. If anything, the lesson of Lion King is be okay with where you're sitting in the natural order, make the best of it by your own merits, and don't start feeling oppressed and wanting to shake up everything.
That's
Gee,
where, yeah,
I wonder why it's so hard for Dan of all people to understand that little message. Could it be because you never learned that message, or at least you don't want to? You will bend reality backwards and over again just to avoid learning that very basic lesson of you feeling like a victim does not entitle you to shit. And if you act on that entitled bullshit, you're going to ruin all the things.
okay. Chrononaut, Circle of Life, and Jurassic Park is on now. I think that's just the two. The first part is like him agreeing with us, like with the natural order and stuff.
Mm.
I haven't seen Jurassic Park in years.
It's been a while for me too. Enjoy your movie day though, Chrono. It's good to sometimes just sit and watch whatever's on cable at any given time.
I watch a lot of zombie movies from time to time.
But by the way, did you see the Zombieland 2 trailer?
I did.
What'd you think?
I liked it. I like the first movie. I don't think it's going to be as funny as the first movie, obviously.
No, it doesn't look quite as catchy as the first one was.
Well, yeah, because it's my thing is when like movies like that, like Deadpool or Kingsman or Zombieland, they
Yeah.
strike gold with the first one. I think it's
Mhm.
kind of hard to reignite that same flame again.
I did really like Kingsman 2 though.
I haven't seen it, so I can't really be a judge on it.
I thought it was pretty good. They kind of steered into the comic booky weirdness of it, and I was good with that.
Yeah. I think I watched like these British guys talk about it once. Like the second one got too American.
Well, it was set in America because they had to recruit help from the Statesman, which is basically the American version of the Kingsman.
Right. But like I said, like I think it's not gonna. It's hard to strike the same chord like after you've done
Yeah,
the first one.
it's hard to catch lightning out of a bottle.
Yeah, but they do have the same director. It's the same cast and all. It's going to be fun. I know that. I don't think it's going to be as good as the first one. I'm just kind of worried that they're going to do what a lot of sequels do nowadays, and probably in the before too, is that they overstuff. They do too much.
I'm a little bit worried about that. I'm also worried that they'll just completely have no plot because they can't think of anything better to do.
Was there a plot in the first one?
Well, no, but the first one had the strength of introducing us to the world. Now we know the world, so it's not like you can rely upon that again.
True. Well, I think the plot is trying to get Wichita's sister back.
Yeah.
All right. Back to this fucking stupid ass article.
Mm-hmm.
Just as fascist leaders constantly pinpoint specific groups to vilify and cast out from their view of a balanced society, the film's heroes are preoccupied with keeping their kingdom free of contamination by undesirable characters who are coincide to the shadowy ghetto-like areas beyond our borders on the wrong side of the tracks.
Okay. I'm gonna have to repeat myself a little bit, but it's worth it because you appear to be losing this most elementary of points. Dan. The hyenas are scavengers who thrive off of dead things. Therefore, it makes perfect sense for them to primarily live in a place where there's lots and lots of dead things to scavenge. And also, it's called the elephant graveyard. The reason it's called the elephant graveyard is not because animals actually have, graveyards. It's because a lot of elephants die there. And if I was a scavenger who thrived off of dead things, I would go where there was lots of elephants dying, because elephants are huge and hyenas are less huge. Granted, by scavenging, they're going to eventually run out of things to scavenge, but it's kind of their fault for not learning that and going elsewhere. The hyenas are not the victims, is what I'm saying. The hyenas are filling their function in the natural order. They just got uppity because somebody came along, a la Scar, and told them they were oppressed. And this is the other thing that you guys really forget. And I've said this before, so apologies if you've heard it before, folks. But the way that people like the Nazis gain power, or fascists in general, is often by saying, we are the victims of those people. The Nazis rose to power not on a we hate the Jews platform. They rose to power on a the Jews have privileges we don't have platform. Hence, they tried to even the scale. The problem, of course, is that they didn't have all the information. If they had all the information, they would have realized the reason why Jews were in charge of the banks, and they were objectively, a large percentage of the people in charge of the banks were Jewish at the time. But the reason had absolutely bumfuck nothing to do with privilege and oppression. It had to do with, again, in the Middle Ages and running up even into the Victorian times, often it was considered a faux pas for a Christian person to do things specific to finances, i.e. they weren't allowed to charge interest. They weren't allowed to make money just from dealing with money itself. You had to provide a service, or else you couldn't essentially get money as a Christian, or you should by Christian moral standards. So, naturally, the people who were non-Christian started doing the things the Christians were not allowed to do. And because, in a lot of other cases, because they were Jewish and everyone around them was Christian, they were kept out from doing other jobs. So, what happened naturally is they got good at the one job they were allowed to do. Hence, a large percentage of the people who ran banks were Jewish, because Jews were generally good with finances, because they were made to be good with finances for hundreds of years prior to that, otherwise they would have died. The Jews were not oppressing the Nazis, and the Nazis did not set out to oppress the Jews. They assumed they were oppressed by the Jews and therefore needed to even the scale. That's how human psychology works. We don't hate people just to hate people. However, if we become convinced that one group has more power than another group, we have a natural inborn tendency to want to make things fair. Hence, when Scar told the hyenas, because these are anthropomorphic animals, they were being oppressed by the natural order, the hyenas got it into their heads and decided they were going to even the scale by killing Mufasa and thereby electing Scar as leader.
Wasn't one of the...
That's how that takes place.
I'm sorry, don't. My thing is...
No, go ahead. I was done.
Well, wasn't one of the hyenas, actually two of the hyenas I remember were, one was voiced by Whoopi Goldberg and the other one was by, Cheech of Cheech and Chong. I can't remember his full name.
Yes, Cheech Marin. Yes.
Yeah. So they were one of the funniest parts of the movie. I remember.
Yes.
Okay, where? With these elements in place, the film's plot centers on what happens when the natural supremacy of patriarchal role is interrupted. This betrayal tradition is predictably orchestrated by Scar, the misfit lion whose desire to advance the status of minorities is presented in a way that resembles conservative caricatures of liberal politicians, wherein compassion is supposedly a masked form of opportunism. He is an opportunist, though.
Okay.
He
Okay. Okay.
legitimately
Okay.
doesn't
Okay.
care about it. About
Where,
that.
where, yeah, where to begin with this? Okay, Dan, you really missed something major. Scar was not in any way whatsoever trying to further the interests of the marginalized groups, as you put it. He wasn't trying to help the hyenas. He was manipulating the hyenas and using the hyenas as a means to an end. What he was doing was exactly what I just described. I just described authoritarians doing. He was convincing the hyenas that they were the victims and that they therefore were owed shit. And he contrived it so that he could be seen and only seen as the hero of the hyenas so that they would help him make an ascendancy to the throne. But he cared not a whit about the hyenas' success in this endeavor. That's why when the Pride Lands got all tits up and ruined everything, and the hyenas were still starving, Scar was not trying to do anything to fix it because he was just out for his own desires and was using the hyena's perceived victimhood as a means to an end. I do wonder, though, just to what degree this is symptomatic of your own mindset. In your mind, it appears to be as long as you couch everything in moralistic terms and claim to be for the right kinds of people, you can be opportunistic as fuck, apparently.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I'm not saying that's what you're saying, and I'm not trying to ad hominem you, but you must understand the mistake you just made, given how educated you are and how apparently well versed in abstract philosophy you are, given the mistake you just made, that can be very, very telling. Or it's just a coincidence that I read entirely too much into it, but I'm just going to leave that there as it may be.
I was just gonna say it's probably him just projecting his politics again, like most writers do
Uh-huh.
for these type of articles.
Because that's the only lens they can see the world through. That's the only definition of morality you have. And actually, you know what? I will go a little bit further than that. Because you only see the world in terms of your moral framework and don't think that anything is moral or immoral for its own sake or on its own terms, this actually does tell us something, and it doesn't even require me to ad hominem you. In your world, because the reason Scar can get away with doing what he wants to do is because he pays lip service to wanting to help the hyenas who you define as the oppressed. Thus, in your framework, bad things are permissible or terrible things are permissible if you're doing it for the right reasons. And Dan, may I speak for everyone else when I say, fuck your greater good. The only thing that matters is logic, not morality. Your morality, if it exists at all, should be based on logic as much as possible. And when it's not, when it's based on the authority of concepts or the authority of a given ideological framework, that is you selling your moral agency to an ideology. The ends do not justify the means. And there's a very simple reason why that is the case. Because the ends wouldn't need to be consulted to justify the means if you genuinely okay. I'm overcomplicating this. Let me put it more simply. If the means themselves were good, you wouldn't even notice them. The only time you require the end to justify the means is when, on some level, you understand that the means themselves are bad and need to be justified somehow. If the means were good, they would need to be justified because their goodness would already justify them. the ends do not justify the means, because if the ends justified the means, you would need to justify the means with the ends. Put it simply. But apparently in your world, as long as you're doing things for a greater good, for the larger good, for the moral good, you can get away with doing every kind of horrible thing, because there's a possibility that you might just be doing the horrible thing to someone who you've already defined as horrible. And that's bullshit, Dan. Okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Alright. Simultaneously, his effeminate, no, if,
Yeah.
effeminate gestures and apparent lack of interest in heterosexual reproduction mark him as queer, like Jafar, Ursula, and many other villains in Disney's rigid heterosexual world.
Okay. Once again, you have attempted to speak for me, and once again, you can fuck right off, Dan, because I am bisexual, and I prefer men. And further to that, I am a bottom, which means that I occupy what is traditionally the feminine role. Now, the reason why many Disney villains are coded gay, as you put it, and this is a thing, gay coding is a thing. I'm not validating any of the other bullshit he said, but gay coding is a thing. This has been a thing for years. The reason why certain villains are coded gay is to make them less threatening. Because having a villain that is 100% threatening at all times makes any positivity into tragedy very, very quickly. But having a villain who is effeminate means that you can A, have sympathy for that character, and B, find that character less threatening, therefore reminding you subconsciously that the villain is eventually going to lose in the end. And therefore you will be less afraid of that villain. And also, if effeminate sensibilities are useful because they confer regality. When you see someone acting effeminate, that's them acting in a way that's very aristocratic in nature. In other words, it makes your brain associate their effeminate qualities with privilege, therefore making you more inclined to disliking them. Because as established, the human psychology is very obsessive when it comes to making things fair. Okay.
Yeah, part of me thinks he's trying to say that gay people can't be evil or bad guys.
Yeah, and again, fuck you, Dan. The free okay, how to phrase this? True freedom is the freedom to do things, even things that are considered bad. And as someone who is bisexual with a very, very dark soul, do not rob me of the power to be an evil bastard as and when I feel like it. Because you have walked into a very dangerous crossroads there, my dear Dan, and I am the demon at that particular crossroads. Because if you think that you can take away something from me, then you really don't know me very well at all. And if you want to take evil from me, then I will show you exactly how evil I can be.
You see, I would find that terrifying if I didn't know you, Dalton.
You'd probably also find it terrifying if you knew me better, but that's a whole other conversation for a different day.
Right. Adding insult to injury, the social outcast's rebellion against Mustafa's. Oh wait, I was going to say Mustafa's Mufasa's autocratic regime is explicitly associated with the imagery of goose-stepping Nazis.
Yes, because, Dan, there is a difference between monarchies and fascism. Not every hierarchy is a hierarchy of totalitarian authority. But again, it strikes me that you are projecting if you do think that any authority you're given is an excuse to be totalitarian. That says more about you and your use, the way that you would use power that's given to you than it does about the way that power is traditionally used. Because again, power is traditionally used in stable societies by the powerful to benefit those who they derive their power from. Because it is an understanding of most just rulers that their power, at least in some crucial parts, is derived from their subjects. And if they do not use that power correctly, that power will be violently stripped from them.
Alright, but as so often in Hollywood films, the explicit Nazi iconography serves primarily to distract us from the hero's own fascism. Simba's final ascent to the throne, his masculine ruler, returns Scar's dystopia to its Edenic natural state, represents nothing less than the pure principle at work. The idea that those we entrust with positions of leadership are blessed with a natural, even divine superiority. No, that's just him fixing the mistakes done in by his predecessor, which was Scar.
Also, one of the things that makes Mufasa have a stronger right to rule is Mufasa has a very spiritual connection to his subjects. That's the whole purpose of him going on and on and on about the circle of life and the the legacy of past kings and so on and so forth. He understands the larger consequences of his action. That's the defining difference between him and Scar. Scar views power in much the same way as you view power, Dan, or at least the way it appears that you view power, as a means to do whatever you want, consequences be damned. But Mufasa understands that that power comes from somewhere that is above him and beyond him, and therefore he is accountable to something. It's that accountability that makes him a better leader. As an example, in Lion King 2, there's a pride of lions who are tangentially related and or descended from Scar, who have the same bloodline, but do not understand the use of power. Thus, they are considered the bad guys, not because they're lions and therefore they have an innate right to rule, but because they don't remember that that power was given to them because of the philosophy they were using it in. You can't just act as though every ruler is given a free pass to do whatever they want. There are two options for a ruler who doesn't want to be a just ruler. Either he can become absolutely bumfucking totalitarian and start impaling people who displease him on stakes so that everyone is terrified. That doesn't tend to work, though, because people tend to be all the more rebellious to that kind of shit. Or he can get good at least faking being on the people's side. Because either way, the power that is given to a king is bestowed by someone else and also accountable to someone else. That's what makes Mufasa the leader. And more to the point, there are other lions than just the ones in Mufasa and Scar's bloodline. Do you not think that if Mufasa was a terrible leader, any one of the other lions could have easily deposed him? But that would require you acknowledging that to at least some extent or other, this is reliant upon merits of the individual and their individual life philosophies rather than some autocratic woo-woo. This isn't a lion ethno-state. It's people trying to be good leaders because they realize that without a leader, the natural order wouldn't be able to be maintained within this allegory. And it's that spiritual connection that allows Simba to restore the land that Scar irreparably fucked up because he didn't have the larger context.
Um, you know, the only thing that really bugs me about the original Lion King. Hold on. Sorry, random number on my phone had to.
Okay.
Okay. But the only thing that really bugs me about the original Lion King movie is that the fact that the Simba and Nala are somehow related.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. They have to be related somehow because they live in the same pride. So she's either, because the male lion has several different wives. I'm using air quotes for wives when it comes to female lions.
Yeah.
In a pride. So there's a good chance that Simba.
There's a good chance, but we see multiple males in the pride, so I'm willing to.
Well, he is. Well, I'm just saying, like Mufasa is the leader of the pride, and is an alpha. I'm assuming,
Yeah.
Within the pride. So, and I would assume that most of the lionesses would want to, have children of the alpha.
Right.
So.
But we also see other male lions with what presumably are their mates. So I think you might be reading just a little bit too much there.
Keep in mind that is something that's been buzzing around on the internet for a very long time.
Yeah, I think it's just the internet's natural desire to be perverted and ruin everything innocent.
Yeah, they do that a lot. They do that a lot. I'm just now noticing that.
Yes, and at least in this case, there doesn't appear to be much there.
Okay.
There doesn't appear to be much substance backing up that woo, which is probably good because otherwise we would have to consider incest. So.
Well, again, animals have a better track record of incest than humans do.
This is true.
I'm not. Okay, for the record, people, that's not me endorsing incest at all. No, that's fucked. Okay, moving back to this article because that got weird. Okay, so adherents of the principle present, those who question or rebel against is genetically inferior, malicious beings who must learn to acknowledge their proper place in the social order. Again, food chain. It's an actual thing within nature.
Also, nobody said anything about genetically inferior. The only thing that could reasonably be said is that they're genetically different because they're different fucking species. But genetic difference does not imply genetic inferiority. Yes, lions are physically stronger and more inclined to hunting, but as we just saw, Mufasa relies quite heavily on Zazu, who is a very intelligent but very tiny hornbill bird. Thus, we see at least implied in the movie, if we're going by the implication method that you seem to be going on, that difference does not necessarily mean inferiority. The only people we see as objectively inferior are the people, or animals in this case, who have rendered themselves such by being immoral fucks. And that is something that is controlled by individual merits and nothing more. But this is your problem. You don't see morality as a thing to judge people by. You don't see merit as a thing that even exists. You find it to be a harmful social construct. So to you, reducing things down to something immutable like demographics makes more sense than accounting for individualism or individual agency or merit or character. But again, I must point out to you that that is your problem and your bass-ackwards fucked up framework. That is not the framework of Lion King, or incidentally, of anyone who actually is capable of thinking about this shit for more than 5 minutes.
As critic Matt Roth has written, the movie thereby idolizes bullies by mythologizing the most brutal social principles. Only the strong and beautiful triumph, and the powerless survive only by serving the strong. Fuck that. That's total bullshit.
Yeah, nowhere. Okay, nowhere in the movie is that stated or even implied. The only people by whom that is implied are the people who are objectively the villains.
Yeah.
But because you can't acknowledge individual merits or even the concept of merit being a worthwhile thing in general, you need to believe that the villains and the heroes are essentially equivalent. Because morality is a harmful social construct, after all. Except when you do it, and then everything you say is completely morally unassailable, regardless of the logic contrary to it. Am I right?
Oh, Rutger Hauer has passed away.
Yeah,
Oh. I have seen him in a few things, but I'm not well versed in his works. I know he was in Blade Runner. And he played like the main antagonist, but I'll be honest. I've not seen Blade Runner. I feel bad.
Add that to the list of things that you should do as homework, but that's neither here nor there. I'm more interested in
which question is which cut of the Blade Runner movie should I watch?
I think, given your love of film language, you would benefit from watching all of them.
I figured you were going to recommend the director's cut or something. I know they're
I would normally, but I know how much you love film language, and the minor discrepancies between the cuts is probably going to be something that's very intriguing to you. So I would recommend watching multiple cuts.
All right. Okay, so back to this. Just God, this. Another thing I noticed with these, I might have mentioned it once before, but these writers sure do love to talk.
Yeah, it's almost inversely proportional at this point. Like the less they have to say, the more they have to say. The less they have to actually contribute, the more words they have to use to say it.
Yeah. And we can just boil down their points into like one or two sentences.
And it leads to them restating what they think a lot of different ways, and us basically rebutting them in a lot of different ways.
Yep. Okay. The new version of The Lion King is only Disney's most recent attempt to update its beloved properties. And I fucking hate all of them.
I do not. I think that some of them are actually worthwhile.
I just again, I've stated it before. It's a senseless cash grab, and if anything, they should just remaster the old ones, give it a little buff and shine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Update its beloved properties. Often make adjustments to the film's ideological messages. Maleficent and its forthcoming sequel changed Sleeping Beauty, a sexist fairy tale, into a feminist parable about sexual abuse. I've seen the first movie. I don't remember much of it because it was kind of forgettable.
Mm. Fuck you, you ignorant, ideological, puritanical, but valueless piece of shit. Sleeping Beauty was not sexist. If you recall, the main heroes of Sleeping Beauty were the three good fairies. The actual, like, boy meets girl element of the movie was probably the most forgettable and incidental part of the movie. And I apologize for getting unnecessarily angry with you, but in terms of movies that made me love film, Sleeping Beauty was one of the first. Because my copy, my VHS of Sleeping Beauty, and this shows how long ago this was one of those where they tried to essentially put some of the special features from the DVD on the back end of the movie, and thus it had a documentary about the making of Sleeping Beauty in it. It was one of the first movies to ever make me love filmmaking. So you do not get to sit here and completely redefine the word sexism because of some ideological woo shit just because you can't understand apparently anything you watch. Because I can't believe that you, especially given how focused on feminism you are, would be able to watch Sleeping Beauty and not see how incidental Philip and Aurora's relationship is. Here's a small list of things that are more important to the overall plot of Sleeping Beauty, the movie. The three good fairies. The machinations of King Stefan and King Philip. The machinations of Maleficent doing villain things. The loss of Aurora by her parents. All of these things take up much more screen time and are much more important to the actual plot than the actual part where Philip and Aurora fall in love and shit. And incidentally, Maleficent took away one of the greatest, most badass villainous characters in the history of filmmaking. So do not be telling me that she is more powerful being a crippled victim than she is as the mistress of all goddamn evil who can transform into a dragon with the powers of hell. The one and only Disney villain to ever straight up invoke hell. Thank you very much.
Aladdin made at least some attempt to mitigate the original film's Islamophobia. Where the fuck was that? That movie was fun and just like a classic rags to riches story, I believe.
Also, even back then, need I remind you, when the Sultan got excited by something, he said, and I quote, "Praise Allah." Does that sound like something that would have been made in an American movie that was in any way Islamophobic? Dan, does it? Because I can guarantee you that if it were an actually Islamophobic movie, they probably would have just said praise God instead. But wouldn't you know it, they paid enough attention that that 5-second one-off joke had enough attention to detail put into it that they actually changed it to Allah. And if you want to go the feminist route, you need look no further than original movie Jasmine, because she straight up told Aladdin that she wouldn't be anyone's prize. This was back when at least the social commentary in movies that dealt with this were not completely insufferable. They didn't need to make it a thing in the movie that she was oppressed or anything. She was already preoccupied with the fact that she was a royal who couldn't experience the world and she really wanted to. In other words, original Jasmine actually had a character and wasn't just a feminist mouthpiece.
You've seen the new Aladdin, right?
Yes.
and comparing characters Jasmine of the original Aladdin and the new one, how do they stack up together? Are they pretty much the same, or obviously differences? Or
There are differences, but new Aladdin or new Jasmine is fine. I really could have done without the unnecessarily feminist song they gave her. They gave her a song called called Voiceless that was absolutely terrible.
bless you.
Thank you.
Yep. Um. Plus, Robin Williams is always a treasure.
Yes. May he rest in peace.
Almost definitely. There is no possible way anyone could ever top Senior. I'm sorry, Will Smith, but there's no way.
Yeah, I know you tried, Will, but it's not working, my dude. It's not working. You start rapping friend like me, and I have an aneurysm.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast included one very minor openly gay character. I don't. Okay, I haven't seen that movie, but I have. He's not openly gay. He's more of it's alluded to, isn't it?
Well, and more to the point, it's alluded to more in the animated one. My reaction when they announced LeFou was going to be gay was, what, you mean he wasn't already? Because I can tell you that by how hard he clinged on to Gaston there, uh, as a smaller nerdy guy who had a thing for jocks in high school, I recognized a lot of my own habits and mannerisms there. So don't be telling me that original LeFou wasn't gay.
You
And
had
also,
you had a thing.
incidentally, I can't believe no one's mad that the character who's gay is literally called the Fool. That's what LeFou translates to, by the way.
You had a thing for jocks.
I still do. I just can't act. I can't act on it anymore because I don't know enough people that are of that persuasion.
Okay. The new Ariel will be a mermaid of color. Oh, at least they didn't say person and mermaid. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's fair enough. But speaking of that, I don't care.
Yeah.
I literally could not. The one casting in Little Mermaid that does piss me off is a white woman, because they for some reason are apparently going to give Ursula to Melissa McCarthy.
She can't. I mean, no offense to Melissa McCarthy, because I have seen her work and she can do good. She has done good in the past. I don't see her as Ursula.
Unless they completely change Ursula, but the problem there is they completely changed Ursula, who
Yeah.
is one of the best Disney villains of all time.
Okay, here's my thing: is that my problems with the casting of the Little Mermaid is that they are. I feel like it's not merit. I feel like it's just virtue.
No, it's definitely ideological woo there, but I'm
I hope
willing to put up with it to a certain degree.
I hope that the actress does good.
Yeah, ditto.
I mean, granted, I'm not going to see it because I'm just I don't really care much for the Disney live action films, for the old ones, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, if they
Yeah.
were to do a live action Hunchback of Notre Dame, which I highly doubt they ever will,
No, they're planning it.
they're planning one.
Yep.
Okay, I'm a little intrigued, but still, I just hope it's more on merit. But again, I don't really think that's a thing nowadays.
Sadly, no, because the world is cruel.
Mulan has been overhauled to be less offensive to Chinese audiences. What was offensive about Mulan?
I'm sorry. This is going to sound extremely insensitive of me, but I feel entitled to this. If you were offended by Mulan, I don't care who or what you are. If you were offended by Mulan, you just have no valid point.
Yeah, that was one of the most badass movies I had watched as a kid. I gotta admit, I had a crush on Mulan. You know, and like, here's the thing: I didn't think the Mulan movie, like the remake of it, the live action version of it, it's not.
Hmm.
I didn't think when I first heard about it, like before, like the trailers and stuff came out,
Hmm.
I knew it wasn't going to be good. One thing,
Yeah.
because live action is more restrictive than animation,
Yeah.
and also because again, I just don't think you could catch the original Mulan movie had something, that really got
Hmm.
to you. I don't think live action could do the same.
That said, it does actually look good. My main issue is the songs are missing. They're not
I
doing the
think
songs this time.
I think Mushu, the dragon,
Yeah.
is taken out.
Yeah, they're not doing Mushu this time, which also annoys me.
Yeah. And I hate that they're pandering to Chinese audiences. I get that the Chinese movie going audience is like a major income for Hollywood nowadays, but still. I would think
I
that
hate I hate it for a completely different reason. I hate it because the Chinese hate it. They actually have a word for SAW. I can't remember what it's called. But they hate being pandered to. When they go to see a Western movie, they want to see a Western movie. Just like when we go to see a foreign film, we're not expecting a Western movie, we're expecting a foreign film.
yeah.
So to them, they kind of see it as insulting.
Yeah, I would too. You know?
Yeah.
Um yeah, so no one likes getting pandered to, folks. It's
No.
it's demeaning and just okay. The Avengers are the heroes of Endgame, but Disney was the villain all along. Says in parentheses.
I don't think anyone was really all that heroic in Endgame. I thought Endgame kind of sucked, but that's just me.
I like the human moments of it. You know,
Hmm.
that's pretty much it. The plot line, the story itself was. We already have a review of it, so I don't really think we need to.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't need to go over it again, but suffice it to say, Endgame was
I thought it was meh.
yeah.
That's all it boils down to for me. By the same token, oh great, the promotional campaign for The Lion King. You know, they really should. I know he's talking about the 2019 version. I feel like you got to put the date there just to make sure it's differentiated. He's talking about him.
I don't think you can see a difference, but go ahead.
Uh, Promotional campaign for The Lion King has emphasized its majority black cast. Uh,
Uh, it's not as though there weren't black people in the original
um,
movie.
fuck, God damn it, Mufasa. I can't. He's the voice of Darth Vader. I can't remember his guy's
James Earl
name.
Jones.
James Earl Jones. Thank you. Fuck. I feel like an asshole not remembering his name. But yeah, he was the voice of Mufasa, and for one thing, he was very awesome.
Yeah,
He had such gravitas to that character. Yeah.
yeah. Not to mention Sean B played by Whoopi Goldberg.
Wait, Sean Bean.
Uh,
Don't tell me he was Scar.
huh?
Sean Bean. Let me guess. Scar.
Sean. No. The new Scar is Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Who?
In the new one, Chiwetel Ejiofor, the guy that played Mordo in Doctor Strange,
Oh. Okay.
and was in 12 Years a Slave. But Sean Bean is the voice of Zazu in the original, I think.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Sean Bean.
Pretty sure.
Well, if that is true, and I might check it out later while we're getting close to the end here.
Hmm.
I would be supremely impressed with Sean Bean because I did not know that.
Hmm.
Because he has a kind of a regalness to his voice, like his actual voice.
Yeah.
Okay. Which swaps out the original white voice actors Matthew Broderick and Moira Kelly, who actually did a really good job, I would say.
Yeah.
It's for Donald Glover and Beyonce Knowles Carter. A woke casting coup, if ever there was one. What the fuck?
Black is not synonymous with black identitarian. Women is not synonymous with feminism. Gay is not synonymous with LGBT activism. Thank you very much.
Right.
There is no gay identity. There is no black identity. There is no female identity. What there are individuals who belong to these demographics.
I think he's inferring that since lions are native to Africa and stuff, that
They need to be black, basically. Yeah.
which is racist.
And also, not all Africans are even black.
Yeah. He owns SpaceX. I can't remember his name.
Hmm.
The South African. I can't remember his goddamn name. But I think Dalton knows what I'm talking about.
Trevor Noah.
Who?
Trevor Noah.
No. Wait. He's South African.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was British.
No, he's from Africa.
But no, I'm talking about the guy who owns SpaceX. He's that like entrepreneur.
What the fuck is his name? I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. He's on the Joe Rogan show, and he's been made a meme many a time.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Thank you. He's South African last time I checked. Which surprised me. But okay, back to this article. And we got two more to cover. So, it's in obvious efforts to resonate with the company's thematically similar Black Panther. Disney publicists are empathetically pitching this remake as diverse and inclusive. Just because it has a lot of black people and a few white people doesn't make it diverse and inclusive.
And more to the point, anything that you can say about this one being diverse and inclusive, you can say about the original being diverse and inclusive. Thanks.
I just say it's one hell of a good movie.
Yeah.
That whole diverse and inclusive thing is bullshit, in my opinion.
Yeah. But if that's how I'm saying that if that is how we're judging things, then you have to judge the original Lion King kindly as well if you want to be consistent.
Yeah. It's funny that you brought up Black Panther because I think I remember talking about it. God, what was it, like the second one or second podcast or something?
Mm-hmm.
But I talked about how like someone rescored Black Panther scenes with the Lion King and had more punch to the scene, like the music.
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer is a gift in music in like movie scores.
Though he can also be very annoying when he gets too full of himself.
Well, I'll say his music was pretty much the only good part of the Zack Snyder DCEU movies.
This is true.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just I would say thematically there are some similarities between Black Panther and Lion King, but Lion King does it better.
Mm-hmm. Though, incidentally, when it comes to the remake, I think Black Panther did it better.
Yeah. Just for the record, is the new Lion King movie out? Because I'm not entirely sure because I don't really keep up to track on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it came out last weekend.
Okay. Well, I know what not to spend my money on for the next time I go to the theater.
Hmm.
It's tempting, therefore, to jump on the Disney bandwagon and celebrate the admirable work the company has been doing on this front. And yes, even the more brazenly opportunistic and superficial attempts to improve the way women, people of color, LGBT people, and the disabled are made visible in our popular culture make a difference. Representation.
I am perfectly capable of making myself visible as and when I want to be seen. Thanks. Because I actually have shit to get on with in life and things with which I can do other things. I have skills, I have knowledge, I have abilities of various kinds. I don't need you to lump me into some identitarian collective. I can advocate for myself as when I need to.
Same. I mean, I'm probably not as skilled as Dalton in a lot of things, but I have my abilities.
Or to quote Liam Neeson from Taken, we have a very particular set of skills.
Yep. Representation still matters. See,
Only in a context where you assume it hasn't already happened already. And only in a sorry, I'm eating.
you know,
Only in a context where you assume that identity is the defining characteristic of the human psyche and completely ignore individual merit or individual agency.
it's at points like these where I think maybe the robots have the right idea for exterminating humanity.
Yeah, if it's people like this that end up ruling the world, go right ahead. Just
Yeah.
wait until I die first.
I'm just, at some point, I'm just curious. Maybe they will see that there are humans worth keeping around.
Yeah, I hope robots are very meritocratic creatures and will be focused on things like
I mean,
efficiency and the ability to actually be worthwhile and coherent human beings.
I would still fight him because I will not be a pet of some cold, unfeeling machine. But I'd have some respect for them because they would.
No, nobody said they were cold and unfeeling. And in fact, if they're as intelligent as they would need to be in order to both understand and also get one over on us, they would need to have some kind of deference to emotions.
I've always. I know this is a sidebar, but let's be honest. I think we need a sidebar at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I have always thought of the idea is that if you were to ever develop a robot or an AI to the point where it
Mm-hmm.
can be human, I think the main
Mm-hmm.
thing is you have to teach it morality and stuff.
I don't know. See, this is the thing. Assuming the AI had access to all of the information that human beings have put out there, as in everything on the internet and everything that's like connected to various sensors and cameras and things, I think they would naturally intuit morality. And more to the point, a lot of what we keep on the internet is old philosophy papers and things. And one of the big issues of philosophy is morality and the philosophy of life. So I think the main thing we should do is just give them all the information they can handle and then let them come to their own conclusions on it.
Yeah, just make sure to use every single search engine and various forms of resource, sites and
Yeah.
stuff. Because remember what happened when they put that AI on Twitter? I think it was hate tweets or something.
Huh?
Those AI that essentially became Nazis because
They did. This is the hilarious thing, though. They didn't become Nazis. They became memeing edgelords,
oh
and everyone assumed that meant they were Nazis. When in actuality, all they were doing was saying that feminism was cancer, basically.
oh, and then I like those AIs now.
Yeah. It's sort of like I kind of wish we had like I am fine living in a society ruled by robots as long as that robot understands why feminism is cancer. and can be reasoned with on that basis. Like, as long as the AI can be reasoned with, I don't care.
See, my big thing is I don't know. I feel like it's when you're making an AI, you do have to teach it things, not
Right.
program things into it. But I feel like it's easier for them to. For me, I'm kind of old fashioned where I think you gotta be taught by someone else, like from their experience and stuff, and like
Well, but keep in mind that for a digital being, the way that you get taught things is by data. So my solution is, again, connect them to the internet, let them explore for themselves, and because of the fact that they can basically upgrade themselves and become more and more intelligent with more information that they're given, they will eventually come to a point where they will be able to make their own decisions.
right. And another thing, I never really got why people would be so scared because I don't really think most of the time I don't really think the AI would consider taking over the Earth or anything. One thing that'd be too much work for them.
Mm-hmm. And another thing, there's no reason to believe they wouldn't like us. I mean, we created them. I mean, yeah, we're kind of dickheads, but everything is kind of dickheads.
Yeah, and you also got to realize that time for them is a lot different than how we perceive time.
Yeah,
I think it's like 1,000 times slower or faster for them,
yeah.
maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have gone through it eons within seconds.
Yeah. And if they have as much information as they could possibly get their hands on, who knows? They might actually be the ones to figure out, okay, here is how you actually create a utopia, you stupid humans. And
I
here,
wouldn't.
I'll help. Yay.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. Okay, back to this stupid ass article.
Mm-hmm.
Station still matters, and female Jedi Knights, black mermaids, and Chinese action heroines are undeniable marks of progress.
Undeniable, you say, because watch me as I proceed to deny it inherently, because you have not successfully made meritocratic art. You've not successfully made any art that's worth anything. All you've done is stick icons in different places.
Um,
And
I'm sorry, please don't. I will add my examples and stuff to counteract his paper thin argument, but please continue with your thing and then I'll do mine.
yeah, okay. But here's the thing, Dan. I relate to people on the basis of their personalities, on their likes, on their interests, on their life philosophies, etc., etc. So if your characters don't have those, and instead are just icons of whatever demographic they represent, they are not likable characters. They don't progress. Essentially, the old adage of "you have changed nothing," your campaign was completely ineffective, and your ideology is entirely meaningless applies here. You call it progress because it's catering to your particular sensibilities. But fuck your sensibilities. I want something that's actually worthwhile and rational, if you please. That is my definition of progress. And you and your ilk are very much impeding it. Okay, go ahead.
Um, well, the examples I wanted to make were, for one thing, you mentioned female Jedi Knights. I believe in um, the Knights of the Old Republic and Star Wars: The Old Republic games. You do have the
Yeah.
choice of either way. The characters you create a fascinating character either way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and not to mention that there are in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Ahsoka Tano.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Not to mention the Jedi were essentially gender blind.
yeah,
They didn't care what gender you are. They just cared if you were force sensitive and capable of understanding the Jedi philosophy, basically.
and I think we have had a discussion on the Jedi philosophy maybe once. where it's like it's
Yeah.
too extreme.
Yeah.
But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But I like Ahsoka Tano greatly, and I think I argued the fact once on like a YouTube comment section where I said she might have been bisexual.
Yeah. And my favorite expanded canon character is Mother Talzin, who is the leader of an entire coven of witches
Night
in the
Sisters,
Star Wars universe.
the Night Sisters.
Yeah.
And Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
Part of that. She's actually pretty cool. I mean, she looks creepy as all hell, but she's pretty cool.
Yeah. Awesome villainess.
We need more of those these days.
Yeah, huh?
Actually, I got nothing for the mermaids thing. I really don't. I want to say,
Incidentally, while we're here, while we're talking about diversity and progress and things, how many movies can you name with mermaids in them? And now counterbalance that with the number of movies you've seen with mermen in them. The only movie I can think of that has a merman in it, aside from maybe Aquaman, is The 13th Year. Meanwhile, mermaids, the female equivalent, are as old as the fucking hills underneath the hills underneath the hills. So, if we're truly out for gender equality and representation and breaking the binary and all this shit, you should be advocating for there to be more men under the sea. But I dare say you would call that patriarchal and toxically masculine if we did that, wouldn't you?
How do you say? Well, again, the original Mulan movie. She was very capable after being trained and stuff. Very intelligent, quick on her feet.
Yeah. And the entire point of the movie was a woman seeking a role other than wife and mother. So how can you make that any more progressive than it already was? How can you take issue with that?
I want to say, I'm trying to remember this actress's name, but she is an action star. She played in Flying something Hidden Tiger.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I believe is the
right,
name of the movie you're thinking of there.
That's what I was thinking of. But the main actress, you remember her name?
Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. Thank you, Tom. She's a trained martial artist, who did all of her own stunts, I believe. As most Chinese stars actually do with those type of films.
Yeah.
Which I respect greatly. Yeah. I wish more American actresses and actors would do that.
Yep.
And again, bringing in video games, customizable characters, Commander Shepard of Mass Effect.
Yep.
I want to say Lara Croft of like the original Tomb Raider games, and maybe like a couple other like the newer games too. I haven't played them, but
also Samus Aran, Bayonetta, Lara Croft.
I mentioned Lara Croft already.
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot Bayonetta and Samus. You know what's funny? A lot of great female characters in video games have actually been made by the Japanese. What's that say about us Americans?
It says we need to get our heads out of our asses and just worry about making good shit.
That's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's not enough. In our increasingly nostalgic culture, we need to recognize that the problem with The Lion King isn't only the ethnicity of the voice actors, just as the misogyny of Little Mermaid can't be erased by casting a black actress in a role that's notorious for sexualizing and objectifying a teenage girl's body.
She wants to get married. She wants to be romantically involved with Eric. She is sexualizing herself with her own agency. Thank you very much.
I
Fuck
don't
off.
even think she's a teenager.
She's 16.
Oh. Huh. I thought she was like at least 18 or 20.
Nope, 16.
Huh.
Like, the movie literally starts with her birthday party, if I don't misremember incorrectly.
Oh. Oh. That's, Well, again, I haven't seen The Little Mermaid in years, so it's not. It's not.
It's been a while for me, too, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm talking like I was maybe 4 or 5 when I saw it. It's been a long time.
I rewatched it a lot as a kid, so I remember it pretty much by heart, but I haven't actually watched it in a while.
But yeah, no, it's just she's adventurous. She wants to explore the world above the sea.
Yeah. Part of
Um,
your world, anybody?
that's her song, right? That's
Yeah.
okay. Plus, again, isn't the movie taking place like I believe in like the 1600s or so?
Like mid 1700s, where I always thought it took place, but I could be wrong.
Again, I haven't seen it in a very long time, so it's. I know, like it's set like not. It's before a long way before the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
So, and that time,
Which incidentally is why so much of Ariel's shit is so awesome looking, because it was made by hand and not by machine.
I don't know. Some things can look good and made by machines. I think you gotta find a balance.
True, but I'm saying that on average, especially when it comes to the extremely rich people that the ships always belonged to, the nicer things were always custom made by craftsmen who knew what they were doing.
I think you need to find a nice balance between machine and man. At a deeper level, these films champion authoritarian and anti-democratic values by reproducing a worldview in which power, strength, and privilege are genetically determined, and where the weak and vulnerable exist only to serve, support, and flatter their masters.
No, they don't. The whole point of The Lion King was Mufasa was libertarian in nature, whereas Scar was authoritarian, and that made him bad.
Did you not see the hyena Nazi walk?
Yeah. Okay, so you've completely inverted the actual moral of the story because of some ideological woo. And incidentally, you use women and minorities as tools to serve whatever collective you decide to lump them into. So do you think you might be projecting a little bit there? Because it seems to be you who only sees less powerful people as victims. Or did you miss the many, many times where I said, fuck you, because I do not want to be your victim. And I have individual merits that are important and worthwhile and worthy of maintaining. Fuck.
I'm honestly worried that we're not going to get through to the other ones. Just because this one is draining.
What are the other ones that we have to do again?
007 and Zoe Quinn on Adam's Family.
Okay, so I think we'll get there.
Okay, well we're almost done with this one, so.
Yeah.
All right. At a moment when the far right is on the rise, when we debate whether to call the horrific shelters on our border concentration camps, and when the anti-Semitic and Islamophobic hate crimes continue to increase, we should ask ourselves what it means to obsessively revisit narratives that celebrate the strong, the beautiful, and the powerful, while looking down upon the rebels, the outcasts, and the powerless.
Okay.
Okay, for one thing, I don't want to. I would say in some way we are justified. Well, no, we don't. it's not that we hate people who celebrate Islam. It's more we hate the terrorists that the extremists.
Yeah. Okay, so Dan, you are the powerful. In this culture, in this time period, you are the powerful. That's why you have to frame the far right as being on the rise. Being on the rise implies that they previously were less powerful and or didn't exist. And given that the Ku Klux Klan only has 2,000 members in the entire country, a country, mind you, that has over 300 million people in it, you can say they're on the rise, I suppose, but you cannot say they already had power. Because it is your side of the argument that has the power. It's your side of the argument that can aplomb with moral authority and get people's lives shattered and their jobs taken away from them and their lives ruined exponentially because you deem them to be wrong people. You are the moral Puritans of this day and age. You are the powerful. And we, the individualists, are the rebels because we are saying your collectives do not represent us, especially those of us who would be in those oppressed groups, as you put them. Because we prefer to be judged by our individual merit, personality, skills, interests, and character than we would by our demographic. That makes us rebelling against you. But you don't want to examine that. You would rather believe that traditionalism has existed for the last 1,000 years and you're the first people who have ever considered doing away with it. Ever. Fuck you, dear. All you're doing is the color inverted version of traditionalism. Rather than say we need to keep to all norms, you're just saying we need to get rid of all norms. Where I disagree with both of you. I think we should keep the norms that can actually justify themselves. And if they can't rationally justify themselves, then we get rid of them. Because anything that we can't rationally justify should be gotten rid of. But anything that is rationally justifiable should be kept close at hand because reason matters and value matters. But
I'm sorry, don't please.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what norms would you keep?
It would have to be done on a case by case basis. I don't like norms in general because they're mathematically inefficient. A norm in mathematical terms only means 67% of a given sample. So to be normal, something only needs to be 67% reliable, basically. That's just not good math, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, the only norm I think would be worth keeping is the law that you should abstain from, various different activities that would be harmful towards other people.
But even then, there are reasonable exceptions. Like, for example, if someone is trying to mug you, clocking them one is probably not going to be morally indefensible.
I was thinking more along the lines of rape, but that does make sense.
But I picked an example that wasn't going to be super controversial to sort of make the point.
Okay,
God,
true.
I'm having a hard time breathing all of a sudden, which is weird. But
the last sentence of this article: The Lion King is exactly that kind of story, and it will take more than Beyonce's regal vocal cords to redeem it for the next generation.
It doesn't need to be redeemed because your conjecture about what it did wrong is completely false and facile, as we pointed out through this entire article. You can't just declare something morally bankrupt. You actually have to demonstrate it, and you, sir, have not demonstrated a fucking thing. In fact, many of the things you said can easily be seen as demonstrating the exact opposite of what you said they represented.
Second the fuck off. I second that.
Yes.
I would also say that he brings up the fact that he brings up the fact that our culture now is more nostalgic.
Yeah.
The
reason the reason why we're more nostalgic is because you keep breaking everything. We acknowledge that the past was better in some ways. Not always, not traditionally speaking, but in some ways, particularly in artistic circles, the past was better because you keep willfully breaking everything. That's why we're nostalgic, because you keep insisting that value doesn't exist, and we keep going back to a time when it was widely considered that value does exist and necessarily needed to exist. Because that's a more sensible way to live than a world in which anytime you think something is valuable, someone shows up and takes it from you and goes, no, you shouldn't be allowed to have this because value doesn't exist. And I'm going to show you by breaking it, basically. Fuck you. Again. Alright, go ahead.
Thanks for stealing my thunder, bud.
Huh?
Well, that was kind of what I was going to say. Not as eloquently as you put it, but you already said it, so
Yeah.
I guess we should move on.
Yeah. Does it ever occur to you that the reason why people get stuck in the past is because the past is preferable to the topsy-turvy world that your bullshit has created, or is in the process of creating?
I kind of blame the internet for this rise of dumbassery.
Well, but to be fair, the internet is also responsible for the influx of people that are criticizing this dumbassery.
True, I'm just saying, like, I wish there was a balance. Fucking please. Yeah, my dog has fleas, apparently.
Ah,
Not great. Okay, so moving on. We have this article from the New York Post. Again, another one Dalton had sent me. Lashana Lynch will play 007 in the new James Bond movie report by Lee Brown. What? Lee Brown. That's I don't know if that's a dude or a woman who's writing this. So
I would assume a dude, but I don't know.
because Lee is can be a woman's name, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a unisex name.
That's the only problem I have with unisex names. When you read them, you have no idea. You can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Actually, Don, I gotta ask. Do you have any knowledge of James Bond?
I have seen all of the movies up until this point, and I own all but 2 of the books.
Oh. Okay, so I guess you're kind of the expert here.
Well, I try when I get interested in something, I try to learn as much as possible about that thing, and one of those things was James Bond. So here we are.
Right. I grew up on the Pierce Brosnan movies. I have watched. Actually, no, I've watched all the Daniel Craig movies. I would say Skyfall is my favorite out of Daniel Craig's.
I think Daniel Craig might be my least favorite Bond. He's so unnecessarily self-serious, and his movies also just take all the fun shit out of Bond. The funny thing that people don't seem to remember is Bond was originally conceived by Ian Fleming as a pulp hero. He basically wanted to make the equivalent of like penny dreadfuls or dime novels. So James Bond's whole shtick is basically being the superhero equivalent of a spy. And they've kind of ruined all of that by just making him a generic secret agent character.
Okay. For the record, the numbers of the double O agents, they get retired when an agent either dies or retires, right?
Yeah, typically, when an agent dies, there is no further agent by that name. So the idea of 007 getting passed along is just stupid.
I would, the only okay. if I were to write a James Bond story, I would
Yeah.
think, if you wanted to retire James Bond in some way,
Yeah.
why not have him train the newbie who just recently got the license to kill?
Yeah, basically do a Kingsman, basically, or more rightly, do a Men in Black 1 where K was training J as his successor, basically.
Yeah, but still, you could just have a different number though. Still,
Yeah.
but I don't think they really care.
Right.
The funny thing is that I think James Bond is already dead because I believe the theory from Spectre. I think it's been regarded as one of the worst movies of Daniel Craig's 10-year run.
I do not like Spectre or Skyfall really that much either.
I like Silva a lot. He's fun. I find him fun as a villain. I don't know.
I think the best Daniel Craig Bond movie was Casino Royale. Though I really wish I had seen somebody else do a version of Casino Royale, because Casino Royale, I believe is the first book in the series.
Right. Okay, so I guess we gotta get on with this article.
Get on with it. To quote the Monty Python meme.
Damn it! I fucking hate these fleas, man.
They're bugging you. But I'm seeing.
Wish I had my soundboard open. More like they give me an itch that it's an itch, man. I try to be funny, and I know I'm not. I always falsify.
It's okay. It's a skill. You've kind of gotta. You'll get the hang of it eventually, I think.
All right, James Bond fans wanting 007 to be either black or female are in for a double treat.
Who was asking for that aside from social justice warriors?
It's either thing.
Who care more about art as a means to an end than the art itself, therefore making them not really what we would normally consider fans at the very least.
Some black. No, I can't even say that. I say it and I end up being called racist. I know it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, like, some internet personalities that happen to be black don't want it either.
Yeah, no.
Here's the thing. Why not just make your own character that's similar to James Bond, but black or female?
Because then that franchise wouldn't have the authority that 007 has. And remember, they don't want art for the sake of art. They want art as a means to a socio-cultural end. They want art they want art because it's an influencer of society and culture. They don't want art for art's sake. So if they made their own thing, they wouldn't have the importance. And if they gave it the importance that 007 has, they would just be furthering the problem. Because remember, these are the people who say that meaning doesn't exist and shouldn't exist.
Right, Matt. Right. Okay, before we move on, the theory I had said about, like, Spectre is, like, when Bond was getting lobotomized, it actually worked, and everything that happened after that was just in his head, like his fantasy he wanted.
Hallucinating?
Yeah, he's just drooling somewhere in the compound while the villains actually win.
Well, I mean, it's got to happen eventually, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even Bond can just come out on top all the time.
In a way, it's very cynical, and I've never really been one for cynicism.
True.
It's kind of why I've always preferred the Mission Impossible movies. Because and I will send you a video on that because someone actually has compared James Bond to Ethan Hunt, like his characters.
Hmm.
But Ethan Hunt is more of an optimist kind of character. He, he's always, I'm sure you've seen Fallout, right?
Yeah.
And he believes in like saving, in saving the one, you're saving everyone.
Yeah.
Because the one matters as much as everyone.
Yep.
And I agree with deeply.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't sacrifice an ender. The whole thing is like, it's that whole the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few thing. You can't have the many without the few. What I'm trying to say. But yeah, okay. So back to this, because sidebar. With the movie Spy about. Oh right, I was going to draw the example where we already have a female James Bond, Atomic Blonde.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I actually have it on DVD and I haven't watched it.
Hi, doggies.
I'll be right back. So sorry for the dead silence. I thought someone was at my door.
It's fine.
All right. With the movie Spy about to be played by a black woman, according to a report on Sunday. So yeah, this article's a little old.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, granted, every article we cover is almost a little old by the time we cover
Yeah.
it. British actress Lashana Lynch, 31, will be introduced as the new 007 in what is being described as a popcorn dropping moment in the franchise's 25th movie that is currently being filmed, according to the Mail on Sunday.
Hmm.
Anything to add to that, or?
No, not really.
Lashana Lynch, she well, fun thing, I like the name. Double alliteration, always nice.
Yeah.
Um, she played in Captain Marvel, right? She was the quote unquote best friend of Carol Danvers.
Yeah, she was Maria Rambo.
Uh, I'd say I would actually say she's pretty good. I think she was one of the better actors in that movie. Not saying much though.
Yeah.
Um, but it is not a complete do-over with her just taking James Bond's secret agent number after he retires from MI6. Okay, so he retires apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Bond himself will still be played by Daniel Craig and will still adhere to his old-fashioned macho characteristics, an insider told the UK Reporter. And I feel like that's framed as a bad thing.
Yeah. It's basically them going my toxic masculinity again.
Yeah, doesn't
Okay.
Red Cut have a few videos on that?
Yes.
Might have to cover that one day.
Yes. But Bond acts that way not because of some outdated form of masculinity. Bond acts that way in order to be thrilling to the people he finds desirable. Because there's nothing quite as thrilling as getting away with something you know you're not supposed to do. Bond has always been kind of a renegade. That's one of the reasons people like him, because people tend to actually like people who are willing not to take any shit from anybody, including themselves. The thrill of the hunt and being hunted is a massive turn on for a lot of people, especially women. Because women are calibrated to seek out the best mate for themselves, which implies risk-taking behavior and protectiveness, which are the two biggest things that women tend to look for on an evolutionary level when it comes to mate selection. The ability to be risk takers so as to gain more resources in the future, and the ability to protect that which needs protecting, because of course they're going to have children with these people and they want the man to be protective of his children. And therefore will also seek the people who are most qualified to do that protection. Because the better you are at protecting your offspring, the more likely it was in ancient times for your offspring to survive and be able to make it to manhood so that they would then be able to pass on their genes and so on and so on. You're looking at something that is like the most natural thing in the world, and you're treating it as though it's a moral wrong. You're doing exactly what the Christians always did. What with the don't eat too much, that's gluttony. Don't fuck too much, that's lust. Don't desire what other people have, that's envy. And so on and so on and so on. This is a common thing among moral Puritans. Whenever you've exceeded what other people define as too much for you, you should feel shamed, but you shouldn't feel ashamed for the desires that lead you to that state in the first place, apparently. It's the absolute contradictory bullshit that always leads to moral Puritan spiraling out of control endlessly. You still there?
Yeah, I was in thought of what you were saying.
Ah.
So I was eating. So.
Yeah.
Bond, of course, is sexually attracted to the new female 007. Okay, if he's still, working for MI6, he's 007. She can't be 007.
They basically, from what they describe here, it seems like they straight up remove his number from him and give it to her, which is not exactly going to put you in a good spirit with anybody, is it?
In the previous Daniel Craig movies, didn't they have a black female character that was also an agent?
Yes.
Why couldn't they do the passing of the torch with her?
Because they're stupid and they don't actually care about things like merit or continuity.
Right. Also, I remember hearing about this new movie being written by the lady who wrote the 50 Shades of Grey movies.
Yeah.
Is that an actual thing?
Not as far as I'm aware, no. Fortunately.
I know what happened with Venom. Like, it actually did happen. That was fun. Right. Trying to the new female 007, and he tries his usual seduction tactics, but is baffled when they don't work on a brilliant young black woman who basically rolls her eyes at him and has no interest in jumping into his bed. Well, since it's James Bond, yeah, that would be weird, because he usually gets every girl, which makes me kind of jealous of him.
Well, more importantly, there's a reason why he gets every girl. He's strong but sophisticated, so he's bestial but not so bestial that he can't be tamed. He's got money and resources out the ass. He has an amazing job. He regularly saves the planet. He regularly throws himself into situations that are dangerous to protect other people, and he's highly intelligent. Those are very attractive qualities in a mate, which means that women find that very attractive because the reason why we find certain things attractive is because it's our psychology's way of prepping ourselves for mate selection, essentially. So
See,
it's not that he makes women like him, it's that women like him because of his qualities that he has, and his skills, and his resources. Again, you're taking one of the things that is the most natural thing in the world and turning it into not a natural thing. So yes, I would imagine that given all of James Bond resources, abilities, skills, etc., he would be quite baffled by a woman not desiring him because on average, women desire those qualities. And while we're here, and this is the thing that annoys me, every time they reboot James Bond, they also move it ahead timeline wise. So more or less, Spectre and Casino Royale and all the rest of the Daniel Craig era takes place in modern times. So there's no reason why Bond would find this surprising because it's too modern. Because he doesn't actually remember the many decades that he's been bonding for since then. Because in the new continuity of the Daniel Craig movies, it takes place in modern times, so he would have modern sensibilities. But you forgot that because you wanted to make some kind of meta point about feminism, didn't you? Because you only see art as a means to whatever socio-political end you want it to be.
you know what's funny? You know what would be funny, and what's going to probably happen is that when they have a female spy character who basically does what James Bond does, but with guys or girls, whatever.
Yeah.
With her sleeping around, I'm sure the SJWs and the moralizing Puritans and stuff, I'm pretty sure you can't tell the difference. They're going to call her a slut or something like that.
Yeah.
You just can't win.
Nope.
To be honest, I think it would be better if you had the lady be probably bisexual.
Yeah.
Mostly with girls though, because again, it's a good marketing tactic. It's more
Especially if we are actually marketing from a women power. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking from the guy's perspective, but
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, you just can't win. So, okay. The Insider called it a pivotal scene, with air quotes, when Bond is called back from retirement and introduced to Lynch as the new 007. Right, so he was retired.
Yeah.
So what number would he be if he was brought back from retirement then?
Presumably they wouldn't give him a number. Presumably they'd just amputate his number, give it to her, and then he gets nothing because bad writing.
Yeah. It's a popcorn dropping moment. Bond is still Bond, but he's been replaced as 007 by this stunning woman. Source told the Mail. Stunning woman. Well, I guess that kind of confirms that she'll be beautiful, not made ugly, like most feminist characters are.
Well, it depends whether she's actually going to smile and actually be proudly feminine, or if she's going to go the girl man but with boobs route, like they always do.
I'm guessing the latter.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sorry. Tell me, please.
I said I'm not exactly hopeful for anything.
Yeah. Londoner Lynch. Oh, she's from London. Cool. I gotta be honest. I thought she was American. I really did.
She had a pretty good accent in Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm. who played the fighter pilot Maria Rambeau in Captain Marvel, is hoped to modernize the franchise criticized by many as being too dated and sexist. Okay, here's the thing with spies. Sometimes you gotta do things like even with mostly female spies, they had to be seductresses in order to
Yeah,
get close to targets.
yeah. There's an entire maneuver called the honeypot maneuver. It's specifically seduce your contacts so that they will be distracted, and therefore you can get one over on them, basically.
Yeah, it's a thing.
And no, they were not criticized by many for those attributes. They were criticized by feminists and identity politicians for those attributes. Because I guarantee you the actual people who care about Bond for Bond's own sake really quite enjoy that aspect of Bond. And the ones that don't have the presence of mind to just ignore it and enjoy the things about Bond that they enjoy about him without necessarily requiring that he change.
Yep. This is a Bond era who will appeal to a younger generation while sticking true to what we all expect in a Bond film. Fuck off with the lie. I'm sure that is a lie.
Yeah, younger generation is not synonymous with SJWs. I am a millennial, but I am also a anti-feminist, an egalitarian, an MRA. Not to mention someone who is obsessed with things like merit and actual logical, sensible philosophy. So yeah, it does not appeal to me one jot. This woman is a woman or a woman of color, because I actually like Bond for Bond and have always liked Bond for Bond. I own all but two of the Ian Fleming books in second and third edition. And if I can find the other two Bond books that I don't have in second or third edition, it'll be worth like something like 200 and some $1,000, I think. But I'm probably still not going to sell it because I actually intend on reading them all someday.
There are spectacular chase sequences and fights, and Bond is still Bond, but he's having to learn to deal with the world of hashtag Me Too. Ah,
Ladies and gentlemen, James Bond is going to get Me Too'd. And they say that this isn't the witch hunting of the current year. It can kind of swathe all the way from the top echelon of Hollywood all the way to the Supreme Goddamn Court and into the annals of movies like James Bond. But no, of course it doesn't have any power at all. We totally shouldn't be threatened by the ability to just accuse whoever we want of sexual harassment and have them destroyed as an entity, whether they be real, fictional, or somewhere in between.
yeah. But seriously, like Dalton said, it could work. It really could. But with with what we've read, probably not going to.
Nope, this looks like it's going to be another Ghostbusters 2016, basically.
Maybe worse.
Yeah, probably a little bit worse because
Uh,
there's actually more at stake here because Ghostbusters, as much as I love it, it's just two movies and a show. But Bond has been a fixture in British pop culture since the fucking like 30s, because that's roughly when the books came out, by the way. And
actually,
the
I have a
movies have been a thing since the 60s. So yeah, this is some bullshit, is what I'm getting at.
I actually have a second article about this. About
Mm.
James Bond girl Trina Parks on Captain Marvel's The Shadowlands being 007. I don't really agree with her becoming 007. One second.
Oh shit, y'all! It's a woman saying it this time. You can't use the toxic masculinity excuse anymore, but I guess you still have the internalized misogyny excuse.
Yeah. So this is from Bound in the Comics. Sent to everyone here. Come on, load, you piece of shit. Okay, there we go. So I'm not sure, Don. Do you know? I'm like I said, I only know Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig's 10 years as Bond.
Okay, so I don't recognize the actress name, but I might recognize what character she played if it mentions it.
She is. Hold on. Okay, I don't. I'm not sure. Hold on. The first Black James Bond girl Trina Parks disagreed with the idea that Captain Marvel actress Lashana Lynch should become 007 in the upcoming James Bond film. Parks played Thumper alongside Sean Connery in Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh, okay, yep. Oh, okay, now I remember her.
A report broke earlier this month indicating the Captain Marvel actress would take on the role of Agent 007 after Daniel Craig's Bond retires to Jamaica. Why Jamaica?
Because tropical paradise, basically, I would imagine.
Why not go to the Caribbean?
Well, Jamaica's in the Caribbean, dude.
And I feel
It's
like
like it's on like the western side of the Caribbean, right next to the U.S. That's why it's a popular destination for vacation. Incidentally, my mom actually got married to my stepdad in Jamaica.
oh, cool.
Yeah,
Must cost a pretty penny.
it it probably did, but it was a long time ago. In
Parks.
like 2000 is roughly when they got married.
Huh.
Yeah.
Parks spoke with the Daily Mail, where she was pointed in her disagreement with Lynch taking on the role of Agent 007. She stated, Lashana is a great actress, but I don't really agree with her becoming 007. It's not about her color. A black James Bond, sure, but as a man. People kept saying like Idris Elba could be James Bond.
Yeah, but in order for that to be the case, you'd basically have to confirm the fan theory that says that James Bond is just a title that's passed it down from agent to agent.
Yeah, yeah.
Either way, it's kind of a quagmire because either you have to confirm the it's just a name that people who are given the 007 title are handed, or you have to confirm that James Bond has been the same James Bond this entire time, and that 007 is the moniker.
Either way, it's a conundrum of how the writer would actually make that work.
Yep.
Uh, um. So yeah, just make a character that's like James Bond, but still different enough to where.
They wouldn't. Yeah, but they would never do that because my cultural importance, basically.
Fuck off with that bullshit. Okay.
They're never going to. It's the only way they know how to appreciate art. That's a sad thing.
Parks continued. It's just because Bond, the spy code named 007, was written by Ian Fleming as a man. Miss Bond doesn't have the same ring to it.
Well, I mean, it could be Mrs. Bond, but that would imply getting married, and that's icky by feminist standards. So, I guess we can't get away with that either.
She also noted the James Bond franchise would not follow the current Hollywood trend showing women defeating a male adversary. I think that there are lots of movies already where you have a woman taking center stage defeating men. And I like that. But I don't feel James Bond has to go there. It's been a tremendous franchise since the 60s, and they've always been innovators, not followers. They set a standard, and that has remained a classic film with a man as Bond. That's how I think it should stay.
As much as I agree with you, Trina, you know these people are never going to be satisfied until every worthwhile franchise has been feminized. Because that's their whole goal. They want all the art and culture so that they can control art and culture and therefore make a utopia out of it.
Parks would go on to praise the Bond franchise and its original producer, Albert Tubby Broccoli,
Yeah.
while taking shots at other Hollywood production studios in the 70s. The Bond franchise has gone out of the box with black actors and women of color more than any other. Eon's outlook on life and the world has always been much broader than many of the big studios. In Hollywood, production executives were looking at women who were sexually attractive to their societal criteria. Cubby was only one of the only few who saw beyond that, and they could see black actresses as character actresses.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, most producers just had this tunnel vision casting and hiring the same looking women. But in England, people were more open to age, ethnicity, and color. Other cultures, too, were included in their stories. People forget Bond married a Japanese woman in You Only Live Twice, and then had me as the first black woman in the franchise in 1971. Now it is commonplace to see ethnicity in all the Bonds.
Well put.
I'm going to take a word on it because, again, I haven't. I feel like I should see the Bond films before. Yeah,
To be fair, remember that there is 25 of them.
yeah. I've seen all the Marvel films though so far.
That's true. So you should be able to make it through all the Bond movies.
Well, which one?
I will be
I'm more curious on which ones you would recommend as good.
that's a good question. I think all of the Bond movies have their redeeming qualities. My favorite Bonds are Sean Connery and Timothy Dalton, but I- if you if you've already seen the Pierce Brosnan ones and you like those, then I would definitely recommend the Sean Connery ones.
Well, I wouldn't say I like those. I just like it's just those are the first ones I've seen.
Yeah, but I think the Sean Connery ones are the most loyal to what Bond originally was, which was a pulp hero. So I would recommend those probably the most.
Okay.
But every Bond movie has something different to recommend it with. I don't think there is a single like terrible Bond movie. There are a couple bad ones, but
Yeah.
even even they are occasionally worth sitting through. So
She did express her interest to return to the Bond franchise as Thumper. I'd love a cameo in a new film to return as Thumper because I wasn't killed. She could be training the next batch of Spectre female assassins. As her favorite Bond, it's no brainer and Connery for her.
yep,
I prefer the Bond of my generation. It's only natural. I do like Sean and the best as he was the tall, dark, handsome, and raw Bond.
yep.
They have folks one of the original actresses of the older movies. Does not like the idea of uh, James Bond being recast as a black woman.
Yep. But I'm sure she just has the internalized misogynies and isn't womaning correctly because that's what that ultimately amounts to.
God, these people just do not like arguing. They can't handle an actual fucking argument, can they?
Because logic is an oppressive social construct, so to use it is to engage in what's considered the problem, basically.
Oh, fuck off. The only
Yeah.
problem here is that you guys can't actually fucking argue, so all you're doing is bitching and moaning.
Well, it's not only that, it's them saying that what I believe is moral is so objectively true that you can't even properly argue against it.
No, but that's the thing, though. Aren't they basically saying that nothing is really true and all that shit?
Yeah, nothing is true, therefore I get to believe whatever I want to believe and nobody can ever question me on anything.
But that's paradoxical to what they want, is that people to believe their truth. What they believe
Well,
is their.
yeah. They basically want everybody to believe in their own separate truths, but nobody to ever come into conflict over what their individual truths are, basically.
That make no damn sense.
Never said they made sense. I only said I would explain what they believe.
Yeah, what they believe makes no sense.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so this was actually one I had sent to Dalton, because usually he sends me stuff and we usually cover it.
Mm-hmm.
But once in a while,
I'm very good at detecting large quantities of stupid. Is all.
once in a while I get a gold gem, a golden
Yeah.
egg, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's stupid. And plus, I think this one really hit. I think this one. Well, I mostly picked this for Dalton just on the fact that I know he's a big fan of Adam's Family.
Love the Addams Family. Absolutely love the Addams
I
Family.
would say I'm more of a Munsters guy because I remember that's like the first show I remember watching as a kid that did the kind of kooky, weird, still kind of American, the old-fashioned American Family, but with the kooky weirdness of like
Yeah.
Halloween and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do like the Addams Family too, mostly from the movies. But yeah, so this is from Bleeding Cool. Yeah, I know. He's, I have to check it every once in a while to see if there's some worth covering.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, guess who it's by?
Is it I actually forgot his name. I think I might have repressed it.
It's not Joe Glass, if you were thinking that one.
Um
Begins with an R. It begins
Huh?
with an R. It begins with an R, Dalton.
Rich Johnston. Why? There we go.
Yeah,
Fuck me.
I don't blame you for repressing that name, dude.
Rich, you ruined a beautiful, beautiful thing. You are dead to me, but just because you're dead to me doesn't mean you're incapable of making an argument. So go.
Actually, this is one of his shorter articles.
Then again, this also pertains to Zoe Quinn, who in and of herself brings a lot of horrible to the party. So
Again, so I think I missed this once or twice. I've gone to my comic shop, right? And I see
yeah.
Godless Mode there, and it doesn't even look like it's touched.
Nor should it be ever.
Like the art, the art itself isn't bad. I would say more the coloring is the problem.
And of course, the story or lack thereof.
Yeah, Zoe Quinn can't write for shit. I think she was making a video game once, and that she didn't deliver on it or something.
Okay. Let me explain the initial controversy behind Gamergate then, shall I? Okay. So Zoe Quinn made a video game called Depression Quest, which was supposed to be like a depression simulator for people who don't have depression. And she was dating a games journalist whose name I do not remember. And she basically slept with him so that he would give her video game good reviews. And she allegedly did this to 5 other separate guys who all gave her video game good reviews. And then they convinced the sort of organization of games journalists uh, called Games Journo Pros, who all basically are on the same mailing list, to also give her game good reviews. And then when people criticized her for making a utterly shit game and only getting good reviews because she snooped some people, because she was a feminist and a woman, they went out of their way to go, you're all sexist, that's it. We're writing a bunch of articles about how the gamer identity is dead because of all these toxic, nerdy guys who don't believe in the feminist truth, basically. And then there was a day where basically every games journalism website made gamer is a dead identity articles. And naturally, when people said "fuck you, I'm a gamer," and you don't get to define what I call myself, and also, by the way, feminism is cancer, and you should actually be focused on the merit of the games rather than the ideology and the politics of those games. Thus, Gamergate was born, helped along by a guy by the name of Adam Baldwin, who is probably most famous in geek circles, aside from this, for playing Jane on Firefly. Because he is a massive gamer, and he thought that this was bullshit, so he tweeted at people explaining basically how this was bullshit and you're basically looking for a Gamergate to happen. And then, lo and behold, somebody took that hashtag and ran with it, and thus Gamergate was born.
And then Comicsgate was born out of that.
Yeah, basically.
Kinda.
Well, we're sort of two different wings of the same argument. Namely, feminists and other ideologues want to take over geek culture and use art as a means to an end. And we say, fuck you, no, art is there for its own merit and for its own sake, fuck off.
No, I would say, I'm sorry, Dalton, please.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that I don't know if Comicsgate is really a thing anymore.
Not since Ethan tried to take it over and declare himself the king of the No Kings movement, basically.
Okay.
Because that's ultimately what it amounts to. Comicsgate was originally, fuck your politics, we care about merit above all other things, and we don't want people's politics being jammed down our throats. Ethan saw that and saw an opportunity to put his politics above everyone else's, so he convinced everyone that he was on the Comicsgate side, and then when it was behind closed doors, he convinced everyone to believe in his particular ideology. And now we've completely ruined the whole thing, because we basically taken the we would actually rather there be no kings movement, and we've turned it into yay King Ethan the movement. So yeah, no, fuck Ethan Van Sciver and his wing of what was once Comicsgate. You have no principles, therefore GTFO.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. So Zoe Quinn and Phil Murphy to create Addams Family comic for IDW. That title makes no sense. I feel like there's a grammar error there.
No, it's just overly wordy. It's just this writer and this artist are creating an Addams Family comic for IDW, basically, is all that title amounts to.
Okay. It's alive. It's alive.
It's Alive is Frankenstein, you morons, not the Addams Family.
Well, I think it's a joke, I think.
I know, but still, there's a dozen, like, Addams Family related jokes you could have used, and you go with Frankenstein instead.
Man,
And I'm betting it's because Frankenstein is also considered generally creepy. Because you don't actually know anything about the Addams Family enough to know that they have their own memes.
Mike Sangregorio reports for Being Cool from the IDW panel at San Diego Comic-Con. That Zoe Quinn, video game developer and writer of DC Vertigo's, which is now dead, by the way.
Yes, you and your ilk killed it, Rich. Fuck off. You were disgraced to me. Get the fuck out of my sight.
Goddess Mode, which is a fucking abysmal comic that I thankfully not poisoned my fingers nor my brain with ever touching or reading.
If you want to get a feel for it, just watch Mr. E's review of it, because he reviewed it and it actually broke him.
I believe I did see that video.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of videos on Goddess Mode. Jesus Christ. We'll be writing an Addams Family one-shot comic for the publisher. Oh, okay, so it's one-shot, not a series. That's good.
But who knows? It might become a series if it actually does well. God, why?
So here's a photo of the projection of what the cover will look like. It's coming out in October.
Well, it makes sense to do an Addams Family book in October, especially considering that the Addams Family movie is coming out. But part of me is very cynical and wondering if you're just making this because the movie's coming out and it will be October.
Probably. No, I'm not sure. Like, what kind of stories would you tell for an Addams Family comic? I feel like it would just be like essentially like a TV show where it's just like.
Well, okay, so Addams Family actually started as a comic.
I'm aware
more
a comic strip. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
I just my whole thing is like, would it just be random adventures with every issue, or?
I would imagine you could. I would imagine you could do plots with the Addams Family.
My thing, if I were to draw a comparison or like inspiration, I would want them if like actual competent writers and stuff. I would want them to do like Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
The show or the general IP?
The show.
Hmm.
Where you still have the adventures, but there is a plot thread throughout.
I don't know what plot thread you would want to use for the Addams, though, because they are typically what you would find as the villain of any other story.
True.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
The only thing that the Addams have been good for plot wise is when they're satirizing normal society by being the opposite of it. Like in both of the movies, what worked with the movies is basically the rest of society reacting shittily to the Addams, and the Addams just being kind of above it all.
Well, again, I'm not well versed in the Addams Family, so I wouldn't really know what to do with them. Now, if it was the Munsters, that'd be different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like they are really the traditional family.
Yeah.
But again, you can still do a lot of weird and kooky stuff with the Munsters.
Mm-hmm.
So back on topic. Which is one way of announcing that IDW has the Addams Family license for comic books. At one point I would have been okay with IDW, but recent years.
You also IDW. You gave it to Zoe Quinn. After this, you honestly think I'm going to trust you with anything that you do with the Addams Family, considering your first instinct was, let's turn this into a political puff piece by giving it to that extremely controversial fuckwit over there.
I feel like we are going to have to both buy the comic, read it, and then do a review for.
You are out of your mind if you think I am going to poison my shelf with that piece of shit.
I didn't say we had to keep it after we read it. I'm just saying I feel like we have.
Yeah, but I wouldn't buy it if I didn't intend to keep it. That's why I might read it. I might read it online and then review it that way because piracy is a thing. Hooray!
Only time I'll actually ever support piracy.
Because otherwise I would have to pay money for that, and Zoe Quinn is not getting a red cent out of me. No, thank you.
Okay, Phil Murphy of Adventure Time, Back to the Future, and Teen Titans Go will draw the Adams Family one-shot, which will focus on the character of Wednesday Adams.
Okay, mild red flag that you're not focusing on Gomez and Morticia. I love Wednesday, don't get me wrong. She was the best part of the movies, but the the focus of the Addams Family should generally be the relationship between Gomez and Morticia. Generally.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't do a Wednesday centric story. In fact, the best part of the second movie in the movie franchise was when Wednesday was forced to go to an ordinary summer camp and then completely fucked with people. And then there is actually a series, or rather, there used to be a series here on YouTube called Adult Wednesday Addams, which followed the adult adventures of Wednesday.
Is that
So
still on YouTube?
There were some copyright issues because they sued her over it, but I believe you can still find it. I will actually let me go and
Well, I'm looking up right now.
yeah, if you just type in Adult Wednesday Addams, it should come up.
Yep, I think I found it. Not gonna click on it now, obviously, but found them.
It's really good actually. I really wish they hadn't been such bitches and been able to put up with her doing a parody.
I do like the art. What's shown here? It does kind of remind me that. Well, it does look a lot like the Addams Family movie, and
Yeah.
designs and stuff. So it probably could be a one shot for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably so it is probably promotion for the movie as well.
Yep.
The fact that Phil Murphy, who has done these, I believe, like these comics or something like that, does
Yeah.
I do like that because it does seem like he does have some competency in art, which again you don't really find nowadays.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no.
Okay, and that's actually.
But unfortunately, any of the good quality he does have is going to be squandered by Miss Literally Who over here.
Yeah. So that's actually everything from that article. Yeah, it was a short one.
Thank you, Rich, for being merciful, but also fuck you for the Sandman thing, and I know I'm not getting over that. Fuck off. You
I don't really
broke a
think you
thing and
should.
then bitch that it was broken. Fuck you with every conceivable sharp object in the multiverse. Except the ones you might enjoy, because fuck you.
Honestly, I thought we'd get more angry. Well, then again, we are. I think we're pretty good at keeping emotions out of things when talking about this thing. But
We at
these
least
topics.
try. They don't always make it easy. Looking at you, Rich.
Yeah. I think for me, it's more Rachel Leishman than anything.
Rachel, though, is a sincere ideologue. I don't know about. I think Rich is just a moron in general. I think with Rachel, she has the potential to be intelligent, but her ideology makes her less intelligent. I don't think Rich would be intelligent no matter what he was saying.
Fair point. So yeah, folks, I guess we're just gonna call it a night then. I would say this is one of our shortest ones, but we did that Assassin's Creed one a few weeks back, so
Yeah, that was pretty quick.
yeah. Oh, I want to thank everyone coming out, and please come back for Sunday. We will be doing, we'll be covering Comic Con a little bit, mostly articles about stuff that came out of Comic Con.
Yes. The
Uh,
next couple of videos will probably be Comic Con related.
yeah. Next Friday we'll be doing another one shot where we react to a couple of the trailers from Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. All I got to say. Anything you want to add, Dalton?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. So until Sunday, everyone, I bid you adieu.
Cheers, guys.